terms of results, Mick, 1 win in 17. It can't go on like this, can it?
It can.
And that's that. I really want to cut out the "that's that" at the start of every single episode. Do you know when you want to build a habit and you want to build like a line of successive actions, you know? So every single episode has a "that's that" at the moment. I want that to stop. Like,
you just want to get rid of that whole bit.
Yeah, I just want to get the whole thing can die.
Just get rid of every part that we've set up consistently throughout this entire thing and just do it completely differently.
Just get rid of the whole show.
Oh, well, right, yeah.
I'm going to upload an episode of silence, okay? That's what I'm going to
do. We should just have a different show under this name, just completely differently.
Wales Silly.
Wales Silly.
Welcome to Silly Wales. This is a mental health podcast. We discuss topics that aren't always suitable for sensitive listening. Yeah, that's it. I'm trying to mix up a little bit as well. That's not working. Anyway, what I normally say is this show has warnings of triggerness, and sometimes we might say things that are a little bit on the sensitive side or things that you might not want to like openly listen to. So, you know, death, suicide, we're now demonetized on YouTube, bad things, good things surrounded by bad things.
I haven't heard
Reagan.
I haven't heard the news from like the sources you have that like listen to stuff and give you feedback. What was their view of the second episode that we did on sort of the deaf stuff? Like, what was the sort of general feel on that one? Have you gotten anything on that one?
Well, just like I say every single episode, this podcast is for everyone, but it might not be for you. Like we've, I think in general, no one who listens a lot to this show cares about what's being discussed because they've gone through their own shit. They're currently going through their own shit. So this is tame to a lot of them. This is very, very, very tame. Of course, I can't remember if we discussed it properly on the last episode, not. But we discussed it when somebody was a little bit, I guess, is it perturbed about my views on self-diagnosis?
Yeah, or disturbed, like one of those two, yeah, sort of thing.
Yeah, you know, we discussed it a little bit on air, and most of it was off air. And long story short, I discussed my views on self-diagnosis, and to summarize it, it's 9 times out of 10, I think is really wrong. I think that we shouldn't be doing the job of scientists and doctors and diagnosing ourselves and like trying to get treatment for ourselves for things that we do not know whether we truly have or not. The thing is with like mental health conditions or however you want to view them, whatever you want to title them is that you can probably do a scan of your brain. It will show you that you have them. And there's a reason why that science exists, and we should probably respect it because they're smarter than us, you know? And people who self-diagnose and refuse to, like, be open to the fact that they could be wrong about their self-diagnosis, I rank them very similarly to, like, anti-vaxxers and things like that, where you think that you're smarter than people who have studied for years. So, yeah.
I personally feel that that's too harsh, like the last bit you said there, but I see the kind of lack of, because I think the big thing is in that specific thing, you know, if that's what we're going to discuss now, like in that specific scenario, I think one of the things that you miss by doing like self-diagnosis, so you might have a diagnosis which actually isn't the most accurate diagnosis for you. Like, you know, we might say like, you know, oh, you don't actually have X, but it doesn't mean that you don't actually have something. And there might actually be a more accurate thing that a professional could give you. So in fact, you're almost denying yourself the ability to kind of engage with it. I think like talking about anti-vax, I think like anti-vax is such a denial of any medical whatsoever. Like you wouldn't even, you know, and going into like a really different direction. And I think it's too harsh personally, because I also think that there's so much associated with that.
Maybe it is.
They're not really comparable in my opinion, but I get the kind of the weird relationship with like medical side of things. That I can see that at the very least.
Yeah, I think I'm more thinking of it as a point of the denial side of things, where it's very clear what this thing is doing, why this thing is here. And you look at that and you go, no, this is the right answer. And I don't want to take this vaccine, even though it's literally there to help. You want to read a dodgy link to a dodgy website with .weebly at the end of it, and you want to cite that as your sources. Because and the reasons why people self-diagnose is down to a very legitimate reason where they don't trust their health service. That's to give them the right guidance and support because they've been like victims of malpractice. And I think a lot of people with mental health conditions have been a victim of some form of malpractice. I have. Like it's not an uncommon thing. I think the reason why, because this discussion actually comes up a lot now, just because of the rates of ADHD diagnosis happening now.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people want to skip the process and just say they have it. And ADHD has become like the fashion condition now.
Yeah.
Like, the very commonly troped out thing back in the mid 2000s was every girl was saying that she was bisexual. It was out of bollocks, but people would always say it. And it was one of those like things that were just throwing up teenage girls for no reason. Patriarchy and all that shit, right? ADHD is becoming similar to that, where you kind of have people just saying, oh, that's my ADHD. And they say it with a really throwaway remark. I'm just like, is that you saying that you have ADHD, or is that you just using it as like a thing? Or like when a goalkeeper makes a mistake, like Aaron Ramsdale said he can't focus for a full 90 minutes, and everyone said he has ADHD. He probably doesn't. It's just he's very honest in the fact that no one really focuses on anything for full 90 minutes.
I've seen a few episode titles on YouTube that's just like, you don't have ADHD, you just use TikTok or something like that. Some kind of version of it where it's like, yeah, and it's not you that you have ADHD, it's just that you use a bunch of different things that are kind of designed to make your brain act in a way that if you thought was kind of the natural state of your brain could theoretically feel like ADHD, but is not. If you were to get away from certain like sites and media things, and you wouldn't feel that way. I am curious about what is. I think ADHD obviously is in a tough place as far as like the sort of in the specifics. When we're just chatting about it, right? When we're not going through a process of diagnosis, which I guess is why I think me and you are pointing out that diagnosis matters. When we're just kind of talking about it, it's very easy to conflate so many, like just kind of the effect of media and like, of short form media and things like that, social media on our brains, and have a very strong association to something like ADHD. Whereas within diagnosis, it can be kind of more or less clear, like what the actual, what the line is or whatever. So I think it's just in a rough spot as far as like that there is actually something very similar to it that society is also looking at and is also associating with. And so I think people are kind of generally speaking well-meaning in terms of how they approach it in their minds, but it's not in terms of what the actual like, kind of larger effects are. They're just kind of missing the point or whatever.
Like, I think I've also had an experience where I've seen a lot of this play out in a negative way. So people use it as an excuse for their behavior when they don't actually have it. Which again, if someone were to say, I don't know, lose track of time completely and be late for something, which I've done, and which I've had also happened to me with someone with ADHD, and they were to go, I'm really sorry, thing is, I have ADHD. That makes me a hell of a lot more understanding.
Right.
If you go, oh, that's just my ADHD, that's why I was late today. And I was like, do you actually have ADHD? No, but I'm pretty sure I do. I am minus in my understanding. Because one, you're just late because you're late. And then two, you melt the snowflake in me. Like, if we're going to use that language of it all, where that does affect me in a way that probably wouldn't affect anybody else. I'm just like, yo, what the fuck? I've also had people just outwardly claim that they have like schizophrenia without actually having it, and bipolar without having it. So, and these are scary things by scary people. And I guess a part of me looks at that and go, wow, there's a lot of like using a condition you don't have for sympathy that you probably don't really need.
I in my mind at least, because I try to think of it from the person's perspective as best as possible, and I think because I'm somewhat pathetic enough over my life that I can actually, weirdly enough, come up with lots of different reasons why people do things. This is going to sound bad, but because I'm kind of saying a negative thing to every one of those people. Like, I mean, you might be happy with that, but I think I'm like fragile enough as a person, or I have been in my life, that I can kind of imagine what it would be like to do things and make decisions that are kind of stupid, and and when you actually go back and think about it and things like that. I make a lot of mistakes, is what I'm saying, and I've tried learning from them. But for me, I think I can imagine a situation where, as you're trying to, where weirdly enough, something like a diagnosis or something else sort of inherently separate from you. I mean, like, even, for example, people saying like, I'm a bit OCD about this, things like that. We've heard lots of this sort of language before. Beg your pardon. And I think the use of these terms, one, it's a sort of linguistic phenomena that this kind of happens to a certain extent, like things that are, things that have like kind of more intense notions can be made to be more normalized. This is very common, sort of linguistically. But the other factor, I think, and for anyone who is sort of going through life and maybe beginning to kind of recognize some of the terminology and the discussion around mental health, and is maybe like following or going through with some sort of introspection around the subject, but yet has very little actual understanding of the full picture, or like the full, they're coming at it from their perspective very narrowly with the specific intent of trying to understand themselves. Whereas, if we're talking about the kind of larger question about autism or ADHD or any of these sorts of things, and we're talking about the communities that exist within them, and we're talking about the actual effects this has on people day to day, then they're not seeing that, and they're not necessarily experiencing that. And for them, for them, it's like it's a way to establish themselves / to kind of make sense of themselves by using something that is a more external phrasing or an external label and identifier, right? Like we sort of talk about labels and how we do not like labels a lot of the time. But if you think of it just as a sort of like a personal identifier to understand oneself, right? Because, and this is partly philosophical in my opinion, but I think that this is also something that people would generally agree with, is that you can't really establish yourself or understand yourself or identify yourself or know yourself without something else, without some sort of other to do it for you. There's this can be done in a few different ways. Like, if you make someone something, then it makes you the opposite of that potentially. By, if you're different from one another and you make them something, then you are the not that thing. So that gives you a self-identifying principle. If someone tells you that you are something, that is a way to self-identify, for bad and worse, obviously. We've talked about how people can identify you in ways that are really bad as well as good, when we talk about like trauma and stuff like that. But then there's also the fact of like labels and identifiers, like I imagine for a lot of people for a lot of LGBTQ plus people, the use of the term queer, for example, is a word that was quite useful and helpful at a certain point to for like to have pride about one's own to have a name for it that is kind of like taken back, right? And that this actually is a sort of strong confidence identifier, and it means that when someone says it to you attempting to be rude, it's not rude anymore. Like, it doesn't have the same expression, so that almost can help you in not. It doesn't make you more, queer. It doesn't do that. What it does is it cements in your mind that you don't have to think about yourself as being queer and then have some weird conflict in your head because it's sort of an accepted self-identifier, right? That it kind of goes beyond just simply knowing that you are. So there's kind of a mixture of I'm being sympathetic, but also I recognize that the people kind of coming into this don't necessarily have are maybe quite ignorant of like the full gambit, the full picture. But that's why I tend to maybe like kind of generally when me and you chat about this and when we last chatted about it, why I kind of, I guess, push back. I don't push back really heavily on you because I largely agree with you entirely. But I push back on the way you describe it. But that's partly also because I'm in the position where I'm less affected by it. And I've certainly had less interactions with people where it has happened or bothered me, because I actually find there's just fewer people I interact with who talk about this sort of thing, and the social circles we're in are different and blah blah blah. So I'm kind of detached from it, so I can sort of just say all this shit and not feel anything, and it's sort of and it's the best I can do in that regard. Hopefully this is anything the stuff I'm saying is largely true, and I'm not just like apologizing for people. I think that's obviously the thing I want to avoid. But the way I'm getting to this point is by saying, well, I was pathetic in the past, so I think that that other people are also being pathetic. So hopefully I'm not like apologizing by saying it in this way.
But I like to think that I've already met those people, but like if I were to meet like a new person like that, for example, like it's not like I have like the minute someone self-diagnosed, I call them out and I start like going at them. Like, this is East Side, motherfucker. No, I ain't doing that stuff.
Yeah.
It's more like just I've had bad experiences with people who self-diagnose. I don't really want to associate. But I feel like if I were to meet someone, they were to be like, whatever they say.
Mm-hmm.
I would listen and I'll give them like, a time of day. It might not be that time. It might not be a good time, but I'll give them a time of day. I'll be interested to see my reaction to it. Like, really interested. And when that happens, I will bring it to the show.
Yeah, the thing is as well is that like it's easy to get a certain conception about me and you based upon us talking in this environment, but you are a very, very, very polite individual. Like I think probably in social spaces, I think you probably are more polite than I am, like on average. And I think you're better about like, giving people the time of day, as you say. It's just in this environment where we feel kind of more comfortable talking about how we actually feel, you get to pop off a little bit more, and then I just don't have anything more to say than I already do. So it's easy. So it's easy to kind of get a sense that like this is kind of the actual environment that is going on when we're interacting with the world, but that's just not true. In fact, probably more often than not, when I'm more passionate or you're more passionate, is a situation where in real life we're less open about it, like probably on average, like because it bothers us more, and it's one of those things that we don't, unless we outright say that we do. I think it's just one of those things we don't quite like express in normal kind of day to day. And I think everyone will kind of know what we're talking about, what I mean by that, because everyone does it to a certain extent, and more or less, if there's something that's bothering you or whatever, that is going to be the thing that is sticking in your head when you get into a scenario where you feel like you can talk openly about it. Those are the kind of things you're going to talk about. So yeah, like I didn't know we would talk about this specific topic, but like I like coming back to this topic. I think that was actually quite a good summation of it in full.
Yeah. Speaking of news, no one mentioned news, but I'm bringing it into news. You have news.
I do have news. So it's funny because I don't think I've ever mentioned it on the podcast. I think just because other things came up, like with everything with the funeral and stuff and other sorts of things going on, it never made sense to talk about this, and then it just kind of happened over the course of time, right, between episodes and stuff. I have a new job. I'm still working. Yay! I'm still working with Tesco. This is technically a temp role I'm doing with the hope of it becoming permanent. It's one of those like
CEO.
As a CEO, yeah. It's a Christmas CEO. You wouldn't think they do that for CEO positions, but it's great. It's pretty nifty. Just for a month as a CEO, I get like £400,000. No. So so I'm doing a sort of seasonal thing, doing a different kind of job. I have very different hours, like in terms of when in the day I'm scheduled, and it's the same every day, which is actually nice because I like it. And I'm working at a different store, which honestly, sorry, little
you have to say the thing, right?
a little thing before I start talking about any of this. When I did the induction, I had there was a whole slide that came up talking about how you should engage talking about working at the company. And I won't. I don't know if there's any point saying what the company is now. We have archives, through other things of us saying what the company is, but I'm just not going to at the moment. But if you're going back and you're finding any of that information, there was a slide that came up on our induction talking about when you talk about the company on social media, make sure that you express that say that the opinions expressed have nothing to do with the company representative. So none of the opinions that I've expressed about working with this company prior to this, during this, or probably ever, unless I say otherwise, and I'm not working there anymore, something like that. But while I'm working there, so certainly for the future going, none of the opinions expressed are anything that represent the company. It's all my own opinion. Having said that, I personally think that working in smaller shops is way, way worse than working in bigger shops. And I'm now working in a bigger shop, and I'm already seeing that feels true. It's very difficult because this is my first day. This is it. Like, I have no other experience of this job. So I could be totally wrong come a month from now, which, we're working during the busiest months of the year. So it's going to be bad anyway. But the job is a little bit different. I shouldn't say a little bit different. It's quite a lot different, really. I essentially don't do any of the stuff I did previously. I do like something that I would sometimes do with the previous job. I do entirely in this job, going around and shopping for people's deliveries. The trucks, if you get home deliveries and a truck comes by your house and someone comes up to you with trays and you take them into your house, unload it, bring them back out. I'm the person now who loads up the trays for you at the shop and before they go off. So maybe if you happen to be local to the area I'm in, like if you're in Worcestershire, then you maybe one of your trucks, one of your trays might have been done by me. Who knows? Unlikely though. So, but I'm part of that big group at this store. I honestly find it a lot more fun. Again, it's new kind of honeymoon phase. I truly do believe that working in the bigger store is better though. Like, it's the system, like even like I think that there's so many more people because it scales a lot more. The scaling is better. So there's way more people kind of per thing that generically needs to be done, it is how I would say it. And people tend to be more split off into their sections. So you're not someone who's going to be doing like as many different roles, jobs, and positions in the way that I did. I basically had to do anything that I was asked to do at the Express, but when there's only like 3 people on staff, which was the majority of the time, and then like half of the time also 4 people. Lots of people at the Express I really liked, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot more people as well. So it's a lot easier, I think, to potentially find people that you get along with. Lots more likely to find people your age, or kind of within an age group that like kind of fits. I also think that even if you're someone who isn't very social and you prefer to kind of have your own time, at least with my job, and I think generally in a bigger store, you just end up on your own more often. You just kind of you just get to do what you need to do, and you don't have to talk to people. But normally there'll be someone else kind of in your aisle a lot of the time, or like maybe half the time, which is actually quite a lot more than the Express was.
Would you say it's a good job for a neurodivergent individual?
It's tough because while I might say I'm neurodivergent, I don't know how I rank compared to other people who are neurodivergent. Partly because I don't have enough experience talking to people who are neurodivergent. I don't know how much it kind of like is or isn't good.
Because a lot of autistic people who I've either worked with or know find enjoyment in working in like supermarkets and clothing stores. I was wondering, because a lot of this is down to like, while they may not be socially awkward, I don't know how to say this, their social skills aren't high, but they're not socially awkward, does that make sense?
Yeah. They're just not
yeah.
like super engaging. They don't engage. Sorry, they're not. It's not that they're not super engaging. They don't engage often. They're not like the initiators necessarily of like social engagement. Is what I assume you mean. So there's a few things. The job I'm doing is the job title for what I do is personal shopper. So far, based upon how I have felt, about doing something similar to it in Express, where it's where like there's like small delivery things, and then working at the bigger store, which is the exact same process but done sort of more intensely and more items and done, and it's a lot more like of a streamlined process, like getting stuff for delivery and stuff. Less finicky and a bit more kind of just do the thing. I think that particular job, which is very, very task oriented, like tasks checkbox kind of oriented work, I think is probably quite good. There's a lot more enjoyment in finishing the task, taking the tray back, and then moving on and getting a new one. Like there's a bit of it that feels somewhat like, oh, I'm just doing it over and over again, but you're getting through stuff. So me and the rest of my team are all trying to finish every order we possibly can before we leave, right? Like, before the trucks leave, as many as possible. So when we're working, we are actively trying to complete a task. You know what I mean? Like there's no, we're not just trying to keep the shop afloat. We're not just trying to maintain something. We're actually like doing a thing. So that kind of job, I think, probably is way more satisfying. I mean, certainly for me, it so far is just the idea of it has been. And the thing I liked the most when I was working at the smaller shop is exactly that, is this kind of work. And so I think probably that is more useful from a like kind of social environment situation. When I like the fact that there are more people to be able to interact with, but lots of people, that I've interacted with today, some of them are more social. A lot of like older women tend to be more social, or like kind of, middle-aged women and things like that. But other things as well. And I personally feel, and some people I engage with and they engage back very heavily, and then some people I engage with and it's a little bit more, like a little bit more bare minimum. But the thing is because I am quite good at just not giving a shit and just talking to them, because sometimes even people aren't neurodivergent, if you're just like kind of more introverted, so to speak. I don't like using the word introverted, but if you are sort of more in that category, I can actually sometimes be more talkative than them, specifically because I don't really care. I don't like think about it as much, and whereas they're kind of warming up to me, where I don't need the warming up necessarily to talk to someone I see as a complete stranger. But even then, like they, when we saw each other at an aisle later on, they came up to me, I was kind of looking at something unsure, and they were like, "Oh, what is it? Like, what are you looking for, or whatever?" So I kind of warmed them up to basically later talk to me, right? So really, the vibes, at least in my place, it won't always be this way, but the vibes were really good. that comes down to a lot of things, though. That comes down to management, like the kind of supervisory roles and the management roles is largely what does that. But I think having lots of people and having lots of people you can bounce off of, a lot of people that you can, or even if you don't like talk to them a ton, like just having a bunch of people who will, who will say nice things to you is generally good, or like will say like, hey, how you doing, or whatever. Like that's just good enough, honestly. And I think that so I think it could actually be very good. And generally speaking, the job I'm doing is you're kind of left on your own. Like I'm sort of saying before, that's probably generally a bit more true in the bigger stores. But compared to being a customer assistant, apart from like customers coming up to me and asking me questions like, where is this? Where's that? Like no one actually comes up to me and says anything. There's no one over my shoulder like watching me. There's no one saying like, how long have you got to do it, until like right near the end of the shift, like how many items have you got left and things like that, because they're wanting to finish everything up. Like that's it. There really isn't a ton of oversight in a very kind of like, sort of leering way or anything like that. So you actually get to kind of have a bit of, I mean, it's not quiet because you're in a shop and it's busy, but there's a certain like level of kind of like work quiet that exists, where you just get to kind of do your thing and not have anyone bother you. So I think honestly that it could be. I feel scared like saying one way or the other, but hopefully everything I've said will tell you whether or not it might be good.
It sounds like it is.
Yeah, because to be honest, I'm good. Like I will say, I have no intention of continuing to work in a shop for 20 years. Like that's not my intention or feeling. Like I don't want to do that. Whether or not it might be relatively good for people who are autistic or whatever, that's not my hope. But this is probably the best I could get in that at this level, right? Like that's probably the best I've got at the moment, and I'm glad I've got it. Hopefully, I can make it permanent, so I can be there so until I find a job that I, want to take it over instead. Like I think my biggest thing chatting with mum is, hey, it's harder to get jobs, as you in the lead up to Christmas, because guess what? Everyone's going on holidays and shit like that. So all the recruitment people are kind of not engaging, and they might be like, oh yeah, okay, I'll get back to you in 2 weeks. And it's like, well, okay, well, I'm just waiting around for 2 weeks to find out if a job will want me. Like what? So, if I do end up getting a permanent position, not that I'm counting on it, but if I did, then, maybe April or March is when I, find something and actually get something else. But like I said, in the short term, I think this might be the best like I've had in retail so far. Again, I this is my initial first day feelings about it, which will absolutely change as we go forward. But this is like my initial knowing what I've done before, knowing what this has been like, and getting a feel of like, and knowing the kinds of things I've enjoyed before, feeling out how this is. It's exactly as I thought it would be, which is a good sign. Like there's lots of aspects to this that is like, okay, this is probably quite good. So that's I'm not quietly optimistic. I'm genuinely optimistic about this position, and it has made me so much happier to, like, you can probably tell just from me the way I'm talking, but I am genuinely so much happier, even though again, lots of people I liked where I used to work, but I'm so much happier now, kind of looking towards the future. And I'm even working like more hours now, and like I'm working potentially full-time hours, for at least like half of the days that I work. And we're looking at like between 30 and 37 and a half paid hours. So between what would the actual number? Yeah, so between 30 32.5 and 6 hours, 40 hours, sorry, every week in terms of actual amount of work, time spent at work. So I'm actually earning more money now. Like, it's again, the schedules are all in the morning. I mean, again, that I guess for some people that might be a huge turnoff, but it's 6 a.m. till 12:30 to 2, between that area. I will say, as it gets closer to Christmas, it will be like, oh, we come in at 4 o'clock, like, like in the like 2 weeks leading up to December kind of thing. that's going to be tough. But at the same time, it also means that we might finish earlier as well. Like, might finish at 12 and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily like, it's more like, you get to be working when there are less customers in the store. So there's almost a bonus to a certain extent. So yeah, it's just it's all over the place to some extent, but it is intense. But as long as you don't mind working mornings and things like that, which I'm so far have been preferring, just because I get a day afterwards, I get to do stuff. I'm actually going to have a weekend this week where I might get to do something with Kez and Demi. We might not. I don't know. It depends, because they've just come back from a holiday. I'm not sure if they're really interested. But like just going round to their house and being around at like 2:00, getting to hang with them for a bit. Great. Yeah. I just couldn't do that before. I had to like try and fit it in the evening, hoping that they had nothing really that they were doing. And then if they did have something in the evening, well, I was like, I can't like go out drinking or whatever. I've got work the next day. Like, it's a bit more complicated. Still complicated now. I've still got work the next day, but I'm just in a position which I think is better. So again, I'm feeling positive about this. Mum's going to love this episode when she hears like me talking about this. I realize she's going to be so happy. I haven't spoken to her about today, but I will do soon, like tomorrow probably. But yeah, I personally am in a good place and looking forward to the next bit. I've also had a bunch of other sort of changes in terms of how I've been thinking about work and my sort of things around dysmorphia and things like that, and like the perception I have of being a human being and things like that. So I've actually kind of had a bit of positive push coming from other people. I think I talked about this on the last episode, the effect other people can have on you by just talking about normal things and undermining your expectations and assumptions that you have. And you realize that you're an idiot for having them, but you have been trained to think that way. So I'm generally in a better spot. Watch me in a few weeks when I'm like got the worst sad in the world. But hopefully I won't, because I finish work in the middle of the day. So I'm going to be out, even just the walk home is going to be at sun, with sun all around, and I can spend time in the garden just playing with the dog, or go to see Demi and Kessler, like I said, and kind of do something else or whatever. So that's I'm in a. My hope is that this is actually quite a good job during the winter months as well. So yeah, my all my advice is there all in one, as well as like a little bit of a review. That's my kind of feeling. And my news, basically, my biggest news in a while, because man, I've been at this job for too long.
Yeah.
So it's nice to get out and do something different.
I have nothing. I have fuck all to give you guys. I'm sorry. There's nothing. Let's see. Is there anything I can just like? Yeah. Like, oh yeah, I have Muay Thai sparring. I don't think I've mentioned Muay Thai sparring or anything like that actually. The last few weeks. Yeah. That's been going. That's been going. I feel like I am competitive against better people. That being said, sparred my coach for the second time ever, and you realize how open you are to everything possible. Like, I realized I'll spar one guy, and I was like, hey, if I can have an actual fight, and this is at the level, I'll be okay. Then I sparred my coach, and I was like, I'm going to die. Like, throw a jab. How is he elbowing me? Throw a knee. How is he elbowing me? Throw an overhand right. How is he elbowing me? Don't throw anything. How is he elbowing me? Stand still. How is he elbowing me? Run away. How is he elbowing me? Jump. Elbow. Help me. Elbow. Like, shut up. Elbow. Like, throw a spinning back kick. Somehow elbow. Like, there's nothing like redeemable there. That being said, he said my kicks were really good. So that's a good sign. That's a good positive sign. I think due to I have a big side difference over most people, so naturally my kicks, that doesn't mean that my kicks will be stronger. My kicks are strong because my legs are tree trunks. Like, same with general power in general. I've trained for power for ages, so it's like, oh, look at that, it's a positives. But now I'm thinking about scaling it up. Like, if I'm in an actual fight, does that power match with another heavyweight, or am I just strong in comparison to the people who are smaller than me. But in an actual ring with another, like, I don't know, 6'4" heavyweight, would my power scale? Will I still be considered powerful?
Right,
And it'll
because
be interesting to find out.
6'4" is also. I mean, you're 6 foot, right?
Yeah, apparently I'm
Yeah.
6'1", according to the GP.
You're not 6'1".
I know, right?
Wait,
Like-
actually, hold on. We're very similar heights. There's no way you're 6'1".
I know, right? But I did a measurement. 'Cause I had to have like because there's a history of diabetes in my family. I had to have a pre-diabetes health check, which pretty much meant a checkup. And she was like, "Okay, yeah, 184, that's 6'1". I was like, "What the fuck you just say?"
Oh yeah, that's not 6'1". That's 6 foot. That's 6 foot and less than a half.
Like,
yeah.
But
6'1" centimeter is what she meant.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like, I don't think you understand here what you're doing to my ego here. Okay, like,
That's funny.
bruh. Yeah, but it's really funny. I don't see myself as being tall either. It's only when people point it out. But then my version of tall is like 6'3".
It doesn't feel like you're that much taller than me though. Because I'm like 178, 179. It doesn't feel like you're that much taller than me, does it?
Wait, you're 179. That's like, okay. I get centimeters terribly wrong. So in my opinion, 179 is like 5'6". Like, that's how bad my scale is. What is 179?
178 is 5'10".
Why is the scale so weird? Just what's wrong?
Well, it's
with
just because inches is 2.54 and then a few more decimals of centimeters, so it's a bit awkward. Yeah.
Like,
I can't. We can't be that different. By the way, before we go like too far on this tangent, would you prefer to talk about Nicholas and Isel?
yeah, well, because that fight happened nearly a month ago now. Actually, I think it's something like that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize it was that long ago, but I saw it when you sent me it. Yeah.
Because I only saw it last week because I completely lost track. Like, when I go through bad mental health moments, which is 24/7, I lose track of events and things like that.
Mhm.
So that was earmarked something I really wanted to watch, like, live. Completely forgot about it. So when I saw like the review, like somebody posted highlights of it, and I was like, "What? I need to watch the whole fight." So
This is
watched the whole fight.
This is a kickboxing champion match. Yeah.
The context is one championship, the lightweight championship for kickboxing. Reiki and Ursel, and then Alexis Nicholas. If you're into combat sports, it's always worth giving one championship a good go. I know there's a lot of controversy surrounding one championship for various reasons. Some very valid, some not so valid. I personally ignore the political side of these things, unless it's a UFC, in which case I'm all for John Jones being flamed, Dana White being flamed, burn them all down. They all suck.
I'm ignorant of all of this.
So, yeah, I will still watch it all though. But yeah, like, speaking of big events, this is going to date the episode, but Mike Tyson is fighting Jake Paul either today or tomorrow.
Yeah, people were talking about it at the shop actually.
And that's all it really is, because it's just people will talk about it and people will probably pay attention to it, and it's today, and it's going to be an embarrassment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people are staying up at 4:00 in the morning, so I know that when I'm coaching tomorrow, a lot of my players will be very tired. I don't know. A part of me just hopes no one dies. So,
I think Mike Tyson's good enough that no one's going to die.
Yeah.
I just think that it's sort of I don't know. It's like it's a statement. Okay, in the world, I want to go back to the kickboxing thing because I want to talk about it a little bit. But imagine a hypothetical where, for whatever reason, is it Jake Paul?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't give a shit about him. If he won, right? Just imagine for a second. I don't know how he wins it, but let's just say he won. It's insane to imagine because Mike Tyson in his 50s is fucking scary as shit. Like, there's no. How old is he now? Actually, is he
58?
Is he late 50s? Yeah, I've seen videos of him in his 50s. He's terrifying. There's no, like, I still think he's fucking, a huge deal. I don't know how much he's like actively been doing training because that does make a difference, but like if the situation is that goes down and he like narrowly wins, I don't even know if that's like a big deal to a certain extent, but I genuinely don't think that'll happen, right? But hypothetically, if he does, what is the point? Like, what is the? I don't really get the stunt, apart from saying, "Oh, I beat someone who is this like one of the best, if not considered the best, like in sort of modern boxing, in the world or whatever."
Well, that's all
I
it
don't know.
is.
I
Is
don't know
how
what's considered
can
modern, but
well, that's how you can like because this whole thing is he has to be the quote unquote bad guy. People want to see him get beaten up. Um, so what they've done is he's fought guys who has pretty much will never test him, like Ben Askren, who's an MMA fighter, renowned for his grappling. Then he fought Tyron Woodley, and another MMA fighter. Both of these guys were retired, by the way. Again, renowned for his grappling over his striking. And I think he faced Nate Diaz, and Nate Diaz kind of just went, I could kill him, but just kind of didn't bother killing him. So he lost by decision. But again, a guy who's like somewhat out of the door in terms of fighting and isn't really, an active fighter per se.
mm-hmm.
He's faced those guys and he's put as a record. And it's pretty much a bit of a shambles. And you kind of just don't take it seriously.
So I let's be as gatekeepery as possible about this, just for a moment, right? Let's give ourselves like the ability to do that, right? Do you think that this kind of the YouTuber boxing of this variety, because there's like the kind of streamer chess boxing stuff, which is actually quite chill and is not bad in terms of what it's like trying to do, and but this specific, like the kind of thing that boxing has seen with like KSI and all of that, does it reach a point where it's actively kind of a stain on boxing? Is it kind of entering into that space, or because of how it undermines actual competition and actual people who do this, and spend a career and life on it, and how they, and like the whole you're talking about, I heard that when
Yeah,
you're talking about like bad when you're talking about like, oh, he's looking to be a bad guy, kind of in the way that like there's heels in wrestling or whatever.
Yeah.
But within combat sport competition, is this kind of thing a bit of a detriment? Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get to. Yeah.
In the same way of Duolingo reminding me that I need to continue my 211-day streak.
Wow, well done. I've given up on it. I need to come back to
it. If I put it down and I don't continue the streak, I'll feel bad, but I'll hopefully eventually get over it. Same thing with YouTuber boxing, really, because is it a stain? No, not really. Whenever I tell any like young people I interact with about I do Muay Thai or I did boxing, or whatever, first thing they say is, could I beat up KSI or could I beat up Jake Paul? And normally the answer will be like yes, but now as time has gone on, the answer to whether I can beat Jake Paul is actually no, I couldn't. I'll lose. If they say if I can beat KSI, I'm probably going to still say yes. Sorry, he just sucks. And I can't wait for this to be used by him in like 4 years' time when he challenges me to a fight.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Like
this is 2024 when we said this.
Yeah. Like can't, because again, the issue with these guys is that in terms of a boxing fan, they're not going to create new boxing fans. They're going to just have their own fans come into their space in their little corner. You're not going to have a fan look at KSI, look at Jake Paul, and go, ooh, from this, I'm now going to become a fan of, I don't know, Canelo. Or like, I'm now going to go back and watch, what's his name? Arturo Thunder Gatti versus Mickey Ward. I'm going to watch a whole trilogy. I'm going to do that. You're not going to get that. If they're into boxing, they're into boxing, and they'll watch it anyway. If they're just into their YouTubers, they'll watch their YouTubers, and they'll move on. When they're fighting, they'll come in. When they're not fighting, they'll go out. That's what's really happened here.
Mhm.
Like, their goal isn't to create boxing fans or fans of them as a boxer. It's to promote and spread their brand even further. You know, I can't complain about it because let's be real here. Mike Tyson's taken on 20 million. Jake Paul's taken on 40 million, and that's at the end of the day what it's all about. If Jake Paul wanted to have a credible boxing career, he would have gone down the amateur route, or he would have been fighting boxers who are professional at his like level and working his way up. Actual boxers, not retired superstars. Or he would have used his like quote unquote clout and faced a prominent high level boxer. He says he's a high level boxer.
Right.
Cool. Fight Adrian Broner, because he's a
Yeah,
guy
it's
down
probably
his
a
luck.
lot easier for him in his position to do.
Yeah.
Like if he wanted to go the amateur path, he actually could do it way easier than most people because he just has the ability to kind of
Yeah.
get people into fights. Yeah.
Like, but if he wanted to just go down like a professional route as well, he could just jumpstart his own career. He can face
Oh yeah, sorry, I meant
anyone of
professional,
value.
not amateur. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone of value can face. So like that's why it's hard to take him seriously when you're fighting a 58-year-old retired Mike Tyson.
Mhm.
Same with like, whenever KSI says it, oh, I'm a pro boxer. Gee, I'm yawning through this because it's boring as fuck for me. like, you're not a boxer. You fight other people who also lie about being a boxer. And Tommy Fury, who soundly beat you, and you had a hissy fit and was legitimately crying weeks after, even though you appealed the fight, and then in the appeal, it came out that you actually lost every round. So it wasn't even a
Mhm.
split decision. It was you lost in a unanimous decision. And it will show that there's levels to this game, and you are far below the levels of being a quote unquote professional boxer. So until you can box actual boxers and not win via elbowing them in their face, like KSI beat one of them, stop saying that you're a professional boxer and just say that you're a prize fighter or something. Like, because, at the end of the day, personally,
Would,
come
would
in,
these
get
be
your money, leave.
would these be sort of classed as exhibitions, like what they're doing?
Tyson and Paul is a legitimate fight sanctioned by a legitimate board. If
Oh,
whoever
okay.
wins, this will go on their record as a defeat and a loss,
Wow.
which
Okay.
makes us, like someone said in Muay Thai today, the kids in 100 years are going to see this and think that Jake Paul will be like the best, like the greatest of all time, whatever. And
Mm.
the reality is that maybe, but also I look back at Muhammad Ali's career. I don't think I wasn't born for any of his fights. I don't think. Let's see.
No,
His last
I don't
fight,
think
definitely not. Definitely not. But
no.
like, I know for a fact that towards the end of his career, he lost a few fights, and he was suffering with early set Parkinson's.
Hmm.
That will exist for Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, when there'll be like asterisks here. Mike Tyson came out of retirement at age 58. Like,
Yeah, like I
so
don't.
yeah.
Like I don't think about. I don't think about Muhammad Ali's career at that point. It's not my. It's not the bit that has stood the test of time or anything like that. You know. About the one. What is it actually called?
One fighting championship.
One fighting championship. Yeah, OFC or one FC, whatever you want to call it. That so the thing for people who have no interest in combat sports, like not just sports but specifically what we're talking about, or even are the kind of person that is very let's just say even whether it's for a good reason or not, like you're kind of just a bit reticent about combat sports because it's a little bit because it's violent and it's and things like that. I just want to talk about this a bit because and this is in very stark contrast to the idea of like Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. The thing when I first ever went to do any sort of thing, and of course you've done way more Muay Thai than I have now. There was a point where I had done more Muay Thai kind of by default, but you passed that like years ago.
Once this later on this year will be. Oh no. Yeah, I've already passed my 1 year anniversary now.
Yeah, you passed that, sure.
Just like recently, like a few days ago, I think.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a little bit further ago, but okay. I thought it was like a month ago. So yeah, it's been you're like you've had like many months over me anyway, and mine was years and years and years ago, and about half my life ago now. but like the thing that I experienced was the amount of like kind of camaraderie and general mutual engagement with it in a very like, oh, I'm like beating you, but I want you to do better because I want to fight someone who's better and I want like more of a challenge. And there isn't kind of, and it's like you're going to learn it anyway. It's like I might as well get you to my state, so actually I'm in better form going forward and things like that. And it's more fun, you know. Like if you are just beating someone, it's not actually that fun necessarily. And it's nice to have, you know, and also there's the whole mentoring experience of like, oh, I've got all this wisdom, let me give it to you. And I had that. And to me, like, there's always stuck with me that like there's a kind of controlled violence going on here that's happening, but it's also like it's also done with a genuine care for one another's like kind of well-being and improvement, right? And watching the Nicholas Irsel fight, the thing there's actually quite a few times, especially as you get later into the fight, where you see that come through, where you see like politeness appear into the situation. Like there isn't like bad blood between them, you know. There's I can't remember which round it was. It might have been round 4 or whatever, but or maybe round 5. I'm not sure, but it was one of the later rounds. There was a point where, again, I'm not going to remember exactly which one it was. I think it might have been Earcell actually was holding his boxing glove up, and he was trying to like, you know, what's it called when you just touch off at the beginning, basically, to to be like, okay, we've started, yeah, good, okay, so we're not like, we're not doing that. And there was a little bit of confusion for like a second or two because Nicholas wasn't sure, like thought that he was going for like something, and then realized that, and I guess Isel said something, and then Nicholas like they did a touch off, and it was like, oh, and then they resolved it. And it was just a moment where you see them like genuinely caring about the sport and the game, right? Like caring about not fucking each other over or whatever. They were kind of within it. And then when you see them later on, like when, before it's even concluded like who won, they finish off. They've been beating they've been being into each other. I mean, like watching it as well, really, really good. It's really interesting, like the kind of different because ESL was like had been beaten by Nicholas and then came back, right? Was the kind of storyline there. So and seeing like the adaptations of like the fire he had coming into it, and seeing like the punches he was landing and stuff was amazing. And it gives you a real sense of like, it definitely worked within like the storyline that was kind of being set up. But but like they finish and then they go to hug each other. They hug each other at the end, and it's like, well done, like, and then they go off to each other's corners or whatever. Like it's so weird, I think, to when you think of it in these very like violent ways. And I think I do find that. Actually, I'm not going to say that. I was going to say that boxing might be one of the better ones, but I actually don't necessarily agree with that. But or kickboxing or whatever. But the general feel like watching that fight was one of the things I really liked from a kind of social experience when I was doing it, and one of those things that made me not change my view on combat sports, because I think I always, because I was going there in the first place, I enjoyed it. Martial arts is very enticing for lots of reasons, but I think it's actually a very good form of exercise for a lot of people. I think, for lots of different people, it can actually be kind of the more preferable form of exercise. Very full body. You work on stamina. You work on muscle. You're working on kind of very like active parts of your body rather than like kind of just building up a muscle that you might not use very often and things like that. It's certainly, I don't see, especially within the function of combat sports, you're not really trying to like, vanity muscles don't really, mean anything, right? So that's certainly not like a goal of it in itself. And you're not going to be working on those when you're actually going through with it. But I just remember like watching that fight and seeing that at the end and seeing how they kind of interact with each other. And I mean, they probably share a language of English, right? But but their interaction with each other was like both a physical body language as well as like spoken. And it was just really nice, I think, to see two people who obviously have like this whole storyline and narrative, and what, one took the championship from the other and the other one's coming back. And still to see that there was this very like, hey, I'm, in the ring, I'm not like getting pissed off at you or whatever. Like there was kind of a moment where he was like, oh, you did good that round. Like he just kind of like looked at him and just kind of like tilted his head and was like, and like put his hand up towards him, like kind of, oh, like we did all right. Even though at the end, like, they're doing like a bit of showmanship, like in the last like 30 seconds or whatever, like Earcel's like, like
like he's getting into it,
banging his chest or whatever. Like you talked about this where like you get when you get really into like a sport thing and you start shouting and you start like having this very like kind of excited state. And it happens all the time, but it's funny how you can go into that position but still come out of it and be like, that was great, like well done, like you did good, like that was a good fight, like and that's the kind of interaction you have. And I think especially within a combat sport environment where it feels like you'd be pissed off and annoyed, it's like, no, like they're not just professionals in like the being kind of serious into the job and to the point of the job. They're also kind of professionally lovers of what they're doing. Like they're professionally engaged with this thing, and I guess I shouldn't assume certain things about the way that they feel about what their career, but they're professionally engaged with this, and they have like I imagine they have a very professional respect of it. Especially given what I saw. So, and I've always appreciated that. It's one of the reasons why, like, when I asked about like, let's gatekeep for a second about it, where I was like, is there really like the kind of respect from Jake Paul coming into this that there is with other people in the sport? And obviously, I like your answer because it's ultimately like it's shit, but it isn't like a super evil. So
well, given that Tyson smacked him in the face the minute they went up for their like showdown, maybe remember.
I didn't see this.
This is Mike Tyson. We're dealing with here. Like,
true.
Who the fuck are you? So this will probably be entertaining. This will probably like tick a few boxes for people's like fetish of seeing this like weird, absurd levels of like craziness. That's what it really is at this point.
Yeah. Mike Tyson's a bad example in all of this, I know, but still.
But like, so I've seen a Reagan Alexis Nicholas fight twice now. And everything you said is spot on because this happens a lot. At the end of the day, you still want to see people go home to their family. Funny enough, the best example of this is Deontay Wilder. He actually speaks quite prophetically about it, actually. Like, he's quite well spoken on this one, where he says about how this is the only sport where you can kill a man in the ring. It's legally fine to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that, and I think 3 or 4 years later, he's very much like, he started crying because he had knocked out a guy. He knocked out Robert Helenius, and he was like, I feel terrible because there's people out there who they get knocked out and they're never the same again. And I just hope that he's okay. And there's maturity of Deontay Wilder, and that people say that's linked to his recent results, where he's lost the last 2 fights now. And he did ayahuasca, and that apparently made him soft. And maybe it has, who knows? But his view.
I hate it when people say soft like that. I do, yeah. I really do.
But my view on that is there's a maturity, and also he feels there's a consequence to his actions now. Mm-hmm. Similar to Muay Thai, where when I'm sparring with people, I know the reality of the situation here. I'm 260 fucking pounds. I'm not also like I wouldn't call myself a fat 260 pounds. Weight to lose, but definitely not like a fat.
Yeah, no.
Like, I'll say very athletic 260. And you gotta be careful. So yeah, I've sparred with women, and do I throw with the same power? Yes. Why? Because like it all scales the same. Like, and also the main woman I fight, I can't even hit her anyway. What's the fucking point?
Like, I was gonna say you're missing anyway.
I'm gonna throw a jab. No, I'm not. I'm gonna get kicked in the chest. like, ow. And it's bad. Like because I have a really like funny movement when I get like unbalanced, where you kick me in the chest, and I end up doing a 360, and it's a really like cute ballerina spin I do because I do it all on one foot. And I was like, eventually someone's gonna kick me in the chest, and I'm gonna do the full 360, and just gonna be met with an elbow callback. But yeah, because I've never really thrown to my absolute maximum. But there's some guys who you spar, and you kind of feel like the 2-minute timer is not how long you have to like spar with this person, but it's how long you have to survive. Where like they just come at you, and there's a few MMA fighters who are there sparring. I'm like, I am fucked. I'm fucked. It's game over. Jesus.
Me and you have privately like chatted about like the kind of the people with bad manners and things like that in these sort of situations, right? And it's definitely like bad actors, I think. I'm not trying to make it out like everyone in martial arts or whatever is combat sports is like super good, like had the best intentions all the time or whatever. Like I'm not saying that, but I just think that that's the general average. Like most people are, like you say, want people to continue doing this, be safe, go home, and not end up with a head injury that changes them for the rest of their life or anything like that.
Yeah, like, and that's it. So I've fought with guys, and like I've actually hit people in the dick, and they've hit me in the dick, and we just go, Gio, you're right, shit, sorry, touch gloves, we go again. And
I mean, that's against the rules, right?
Yeah, of course. But like these things happen by accident,
Yeah.
And like there's been times where like I throw like a cross to the body, then go for a head kick, and I try my best to pull it, but sometimes I just throw it and my hips go, and I've connected, and the guy has his hands up, and I catch him like, geez, you all right? And 9 out of 10 they go, yeah, of course. That gets them upset. Not in a I'm going to hurt him way, but now they want to get their back. They've lost major points in the round, technically, if they're thinking about it from a competitive angle. So they're trying to get it back. I'm like, ooh, I have to like shift my focus. And there's some guys who are just really intense, and they say nothing throughout the entire time. And it's very like, you have to match their energy in a little bit. And there's some guys where even if they're serious, I like dance around a little bit now. Like I'm trying to get on my toes. So I'm like moving about a little bit and feeling the music. And I find that those are the more enjoyable ones, where there's a guy like chasing me down. And I'm just like, I'm going to hit you. I'm just going to keep hitting you and kicking you. And just, my leg kicks are great. I know this, bam, bam, bam. How can I keep you away from me? And like figuring out how to keep those type of fighters away.
So
and
you like
it's a really
outboxing?
Cool chess game. To be honest, I was thinking about my style, and I don't think I'm good enough to have a defined one, because I do well if I can kick you in the leg.
To be fair, I mean, no one is that defined in terms of like the word I used, outboxing. That's like a kind of generic term. It's like saying extrovert, introvert. It's slightly, that's not quite true, but it's slightly catch-all, right? So you don't have to be really good to be that defined. Yeah.
If you're really tall, you're going to want to probably keep people at range and just pick them off as they try and come in. If you're really short, you're going to want to get inside and try and kill people with everything you have. I am in the middle of that, and it also depends on who I'm fighting. Like if I'm fighting a guy who's like 5'9" in the heavyweight division, which is possible because big boys exist in this country. Mm-hmm. So I could definitely fight a 5'9" guy who's like 260 pounds like me. Might not be as built, maybe, who knows? Body composition is weird. And I'm going to have to be really good at make sure he doesn't come on the inside, because the last thing I need is an uppercut or like an elbow from there. So again, my leg kicks won't be as effective either, because the distances.
Yeah, if they're coming in close.
But what I find enjoyable is my ability to kick from literally anywhere. Like, I have the ability to literally, like, if a guy is like in close, elbow range, I can get a kick off, and it's really impressive.
Next time I'm down in London and we have time, I would love to watch you. I've never actually seen you do Muay Thai ever. I mean, I've never seen you wrestle outside of watching a video, but
Yeah,
But I'd love to actually watch you spar or something like that. That would be fun.
it'd be really weird having you. Do you know what you might as well do? Just have it come down for a free trial.
Yeah, I suppose so. I don't. It depends. I might not even just be bothered. I might literally just want to see you. But yeah, I mean, I guess that works in the same way.
You know, put on some shorts. Um,
Ugh.
I guess. Yeah, like do the whole Muay Thai gimmick. Did you ever buy a pair of Muay Thai shorts?
No. Back when I did Muay Thai, I didn't have shorts. I don't think. I
I
had
don't have
wraps, but I didn't have
an
shorts.
official pair. I don't have an official pair. I wear like quote unquote like grappling shorts. I bought an actual pair of Muay Thai shorts to actually wear properly. They're green and pink, and
Mhm.
the confidence I have to never wear them.
Oh man, you should wear them.
I just like I feel really. This is my colors. I have pink. I have bright pink kick pads as well, and
Nice.
I think that's really fun. I like to make things enjoyable,
Mhm.
more enjoyable than they really like probably should be anyway. But yeah, I was asked a question about Muay Thai recently. I was asked about how far away I am and what I have to prepare for. I think on this show, on our journal episodes, I'm going to keep like track of my weight. This is going to put a lot of pressure on me. I
Oh,
need
okay.
pressure. I'm 260 pounds and I want to reach 240. There is no deadline set currently. I don't want to set one here in fears that it's tends to be really unrealistic. So I'm going to keep you guys in like, in the loop with that.
You've
See
definitely
where it
chosen the
goes.
best time of year to do this.
Oh yeah. I do my best, like I say gym work and all that stuff around this time.
Oh, okay, that's
If
fair.
my mental like health is okay. I really don't like Christmas. Don't like the festive stuff around it.
Mhm.
So I want the day to be over as quick as possible. I hate the whole thing.
If I ever live with you, I hope that I can somehow impart some of my enjoyment of it to you. I doubt it, but I'd hope so one day.
Yeah, I feel like I'll enjoy these things if I'm like in a relationship or I'm with somebody like yourself. I will
You
like
know,
enjoy that stuff.
you know what it is. You need to come to like one of my Christmases. Is the thing, because I think the thing I like about Christmas has nothing to do with any of the presents or the or even like what is kind of generically Christmas. By the way, I work in a retail shop, so I do experience Christmas like a month before everyone else. Um, so I don't like that stuff. Like I find it really kind of tacky or boring or kind of or antiquated or it's just weird. Like oh, we have a Santa because of Coke. The Santa we have is because of Coca-Cola. And the more you learn about the history of Christmas, it gets a bit weird because then it's like, oh, it's sort of like more of a pagan holiday anyway and stuff. I'm an atheist and I come at it from like from the experience of the sort of ritual of it is really where it comes from in my family. And because it was also a public holiday. And but the thing that's always been a big thing for me is just that I've just had very good family experiences and outside of family experiences, like when I'm talking about like the family that isn't blood related, like spending Christmases with them, going to my cousins and having Christmases there. And these are the cousins I essentially grew up with over the course of my life, seeing them multiple times a year and being very similar age to me and stuff like that. So these have all been like the best those are the best experiences I've liked them way more than my birthday because the actual gift thing is not the thing I enjoy. It's the gathering of this group of people that I really like, getting together and stuff. That is a kind of a whether or not that would help, I don't know. But it's slightly a shame. But as you were
Yeah,
saying, your weight progress thing. I think that's a cool idea. It's kind of similar to what I was doing with YouTube, and while I've kind of come away from it, like I'm generally not on YouTube as much at the moment. And when I'm watching stuff, I'm a little bit better about watching stuff that I find to be a little bit more engaging and a little bit less kind of just brain rotty and just doing it for the sake of doing it. And certainly in the last like while, I have had better mental health than in a while. So I'm kind of in the position where I don't need to do that. So I still recommend, like, trying to do a little bit of a diary about it or whatever. I mean, how much do you think you can even lose, like, per month? Let's say, like, what's your kind of, like, even though you're not doing a deadline
if I cut properly and like really, I'm dialing in like what I'm eating, not to the macros extent, just to the calorie intake. I should lose like a pound or half a pound a week. So
Oh, that's
about
doable. Yeah.
it's about 4 or 5 pounds a month, really. But there'll be some weeks where, for example, like from Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all really active days. Really, it's a lot of movement. I cycle my bike to someone's house, get in their car, I warm up a goalkeeper, go back to said person's house, cycle back from there. The cycle is in total like half an hour.
Mhm.
My active minutes on Fitbit is relatively always 60 minutes, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And they're quite high on Wednesdays as well, because I cycle to work, then I cycle to school to coach like my team and all that stuff. Tuesdays I cycle to games to coach those games. That cycle's like half an hour. It's more the activities, keeping the activities going while also committing to a plan of eating better and adding in more gym. I haven't been to the gym in 2 weeks, and that's down to mixture of money because payment schedules are weird,
Oh yeah.
and down to just I get home and I'm shattered. So I know that okay, cool. It's getting dark now, which means mental health should be improving slightly, but it might not. Who knows? It might not. And
Mhm.
you got to figure out the whole schedule of life. But yeah, I have a weird injury as well, like my shin. I don't know if it's from kicking, but the exact part which connects with where my kick center connect is swollen. It's been swollen for the better part of a week now, 2 weeks actually. So
Yeah.
of like whenever I throw a kick, it hurts. I'm like fuck, which means switching stances and all that shit. If you have no interest in combat sports, this is a terrible episode for you.
Oh no, the first bit was all right.
You know,
They turned off like after the 50% point. We're good.
you've got the main bit. Working
Yeah.
at a supermarket is good for neurodivergent people. That's what you're
Yes,
really here
that's
for.
definitely what I said. Yeah.
You know, like that's it. Anyway,
I think that's good.
anything else?
I'm all right, mate. I think we got all of it. Sorry, I'm
Perfect.
slurring my words. I'm tired.
Yeah, I've been saying my words since. I can't wait for people in the future to be like, and this episode, Alex showed the signs of being punch drunk. It's like,
Joe had a stroke.
Yeah. God, help me. Anyway, we're going to take 2 steps to the rear and get out of here. We're in the wind. See ya.
Love you.